the Ivy Tech Community College dual credit credentialing webinar. So we are going to explore the current landscape of dual credit credentialing and the future opportunities for instructors who are seeking to become fully credentialed. We're delighted to be joined today by partners at the Indiana Commission for Higher Education and the Center of Excellence in Leadership of Learning, CEL, at UND. Next slide, please. We'll be covering three key objectives during today's session. First, we'll provide an overview of how dual credit credentialing is changing as a result of the Higher Learning Commission guidance. We'll be discussing the impact of these changes to the state of Indiana and to Indiana's K-12 schools. And finally, we'll be providing information on how dual credit faculty can access free graduate programming opportunities. I am Rebecca Ray-Schulte, and I am honored to serve as the Vice President of K-14 Initiatives and Statewide Partnerships at Ivy Tech Community College. I am joined by an amazing group of partners, including Dr. Ken Sauer, the Senior Associate Commissioner and Chief Academic Officer at the Indiana Commission for Higher Education, and his CHE colleague, Terry Lambert, the Director of Transfer Indiana. Carrie Dank is with us, and Carrie serves as the new Executive Director of CEL, the Center of Excellence in Leadership of Learning at UND. And his team includes Trish Woldarczyk, CEL Director of Strategic Initiatives, Andrea Fisher, CEL's Teach Dual Credit Indiana Project Coordinator, and Christelle Cater, CEL's STEM Teach Special Project Coordinator. Those are your presenters for today's session. And on that note, I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Sauer to provide information on the CHE Early College Credit Report and the Indiana College Core.
Thank you, Rebecca, and good afternoon to everyone. At its meeting 2 weeks ago, the Commission for Higher Education discussed its newly released Early College Credit Report. The report basically says that students who take dual credit courses go to college in higher numbers and complete programs in higher numbers than those who don't take dual credit. That's the good news. And there's lots of data in that report. I encourage you all to take a look at it. For the presentation this afternoon, I've just pulled out a few slides to emphasize a couple of points. Next slide, please. So we've had tremendous growth in dual credit opportunities. And between 2012 and 2018, this growth has occurred over all socioeconomic statuses and racial ethnic groups. If you look at low income, for example, the dual credit the credits generated from dual credit went from 31% to 49%. If you look at the racial ethnic groups, we have an increase among white students of 23%, from 42% to 65%. However, there are gaps for students of color. The increase is not a great for Black students. It only went up 16%. And for Hispanic and Latino students, the increase was 19%. So gaps remain. Good news, but some bad news there as well. Next slide, please. This Sankey chart is a favorite of many of us. On the left-hand side of the chart, you see where the credits were generated. So 72% of the credits were generated at Ivy Tech and VU. If you add in Indiana University and Purdue, we're at 95% of all of the dual credits that were generated. The right-hand side of the chart shows where those credits wound up, where the students enroll. On the right-hand side, the pattern is much more diffuse. This is especially noted in the case of Ivy Tech, where you have students going throughout the public sector. And in addition to that, you also had some 18% of those credit hours students going to independent institutions. This chart also emphasizes the importance of transferability. And we have developed a very extensive transfer system in Indiana, and that applies to dual credit. In addition, this diverse area of where students wind up also emphasizes the importance of our Indiana e-transcript program. This facilitates the sending of transcripts from high schools to colleges. We are also introducing into the Indiana e-transcript program a college-to-college facility capability. And that means that students who complete dual credits in high school will be able to send requests that their transcripts be sent to the college that they wind up attending, should they attend a college different from the one where they took their dual credits. That's not in place yet, but we are actively working on that and hope to have that in place by next year. Next slide, please. We have always included cost-saving charts in our earlier reports. We've tended to focus on the cost per single credit hour, as you see in the first row of this particular table, which, and of course, as you know, the tuition cost for dual credit is capped at $25. In the case of Ivy Tech, the students pay nothing. That fee is waived. On the other two columns, you'll see what the cost per credit hour is at 2-year and 4-year institutions should someone take that class as a college student. So there's quite a bit of savings there. In the past, we've tended to emphasize the aggregate savings. So if you took all of the students who earned dual credit and you calculated how much they would have saved by taking a dual credit in high school as opposed to taking those courses at the regular college going rate, we would report an estimated savings of some $82 million, which is very impressive. It's an important number. But what we wanted to do is to try to bring home the savings to the individual household. And for that reason, we've run these calculations for students who took 12 hours, essentially completing a semester, or took 30 hours as part of the Indiana College Core. So you would see where they would pay for that core in high school, either nothing or $750 at most. And if they were to take that at the regular price at a 2-year institution, it would range between, let's call it $4,300 and $5,800. If they took that 30-hour core at a 4-year institution, they would have to pay $7,200 to $10,500. In average, students would be saving about $2,600 at public 4-year institutions, $1,100 at public 2-year institutions, if you look at all of the credit hours that were earned. But the next slide, please, makes this a little more understanding to the individual household. So if you look at the lower left-hand side of this chart, you'll see the same, this is essentially the same information that was presented in that bottom row of the previous slide, where we looked at a student who completed the 30-hour general education core, the Indiana College Core, as we now call it. And you'll see from this chart here that someone might pay no more than $750 by taking the Indiana College Core in high school through dual credit, but they would, for that same core, if they were to take that as a college student at the regular college going rate, it would be between $4,200 and $5,700 at a 2-year institution, $7,200 10.5 at a four-year institution. And to be sure, this particular graphic will be used in our communication plan, marketing plan, that will run through the fall and which will emphasize the availability of the Indiana College Core at high schools. Let me use this point in the presentation to emphasize what I hope you understand now, which is that what we used to call the statewide transfer gen ed core, the STGEC, as it has rolled off the tongues of many of us who have said it thousands of times, we've rebranded that to the Indiana College Core, which is shorter, easier to say, and I hope communicates better what that core is about. On the right-hand side of the chart, you'll see another graphic which shows the growth in the number of high school students who have earned the Indiana College Core. That number has gone from 42 in 2014 all the way up to 1,200 in 2018. And should we project that 2 years further, in 2020, we estimate that that number has approximately doubled. So incredible growth in the number of students who complete that 30-hour Indiana General Core. Next slide, please. Now, with respect to this core, we have developed some criteria, still in draft form, but we hope to finalize those criteria soon, which would determine when a particular high school could be identified as a delivery site for the Indiana College Core. And we wanted to be much more deliberate about identifying those sites. The criteria are more detailed than what you have in the slide, but I'll just quickly go through some of the main points of these criteria. So while I'm referring to point number 2 here, while high schools and post-secondary partners have MOUs that have been signed for particular courses, the MOU referenced here is between the high school and the primary public post-secondary partner, which would refer to the delivery of the entire core and not just the individual courses. So this is essentially an MOU which would say the high school and the primary post-secondary partner agree that over time there will be a sustainable commitment to delivering all of the courses that students need to complete the core. The criteria would also identify duties of the primary post-secondary partner. I've not listed all of them here, but here are some important ones. The primary post-secondary partner would offer at least 15 of the 30 credit hours required to complete the Indiana College Core. In addition, the primary post-secondary partner would take on the responsibility to coordinate the coursework that might be delivered by other post-secondary partners. And we know many high schools have courses delivered by 2 or more post-secondary institutions. But this coordination of coursework required to complete the core would also include looking at AP opportunities. Advanced placement can be a way to satisfy requirements in the core. We would look to the possibility of delivering courses through distance education, partnerships with neighboring school districts, and so on. So the idea here is that the primary post-secondary partner would not just deliver their own coursework, but if other sources of coursework was needed, they would also coordinate that as well. And then finally, the primary post-secondary education partner would work with the commission to ensure that delivery sites are placed on the Indiana Credential Registry. Now, we don't have time to get into the Indiana Credential Registry, but essentially this is an effort to make public and transparent all of the sites at which the Indiana College Core could be completed, along with links to the post-secondary partner that is conferring the core at that particular site. This is a big topic, but we don't have time to get into it now, but that's essentially what this is about, making public and transparent the delivery sites. We hope, by the way, by making this information about where the core can be earned very public and transparent, and we would hope to highlight this in our marketing campaign through the fall, that we would encourage high schools where the core is not presently available to work with post-secondary partners to see if the core, in fact, could be available in future years at that particular high school. I'd also say one other thing that we will add to the criteria, and that is that we would like high schools who are partnering with a post-secondary institution, a primary post-secondary partner, to make the core available, would also send all of their transcripts, their high school transcripts, to colleges as XML data files. That's another topic, and at some point we would like to talk more about that. But in any case, this is our effort. These criteria will be finalized soon. We have actually added the first 10 high schools where the core is available to the Indiana Credential Registry, and we will be working with other high schools to try to add their school as a delivery site, and that would be listed in the Indiana Credential Registry. And with Rebecca, I will turn this back to Rebecca.
Great, thank you, Dr. Sauer. We really appreciate the rebranding of the STGEC to the Indiana College Core. We believe that it will provide greater understanding, greater transparency, and will help in better marketing this opportunity to students across the state. We also know that the Indiana College Core will be directly impacted by the credentialing changes that are forthcoming. So I think it's great that we had the opportunity to share a few of those details with our audience today. We appreciate also the Commission's work in publishing their early college credit report and really documenting the impact of dual credit programming on both the short-term and the long-term outcomes for students. And so I want to spend a couple of slides just talking about the role of Ivy Tech's dual credit programming within the statewide landscape. Next slide, please. As outlined within the early college credit report, nearly 2/3 of the 2018 high school cohort earned college credit before graduating high school. So if you look at the chart on the left of those dual credit earners, you'll notice that 56% earned dual credit through Ivy Tech Community College, which further accounted for 60% of the total dual credits earned. The chart on the right differentiates career and technical education programming from liberal arts and science programming. And you'll note that students earning credit through Ivy Tech and Vincennes University were more likely to be in career and technical education programming than those enrolled in dual credit through our four-year institution partners. Next slide, please. This slide really represents our Ivy Tech Community College dual credit and dual enrollment partnership programming during the 2019-2020 academic year. I want to note that these are shared outcomes, and they really result from really collaborative and intentional partnerships with K-12 in order to bring these efforts to fruition. Together, we served 63,745 dual credit students within the state of Indiana. And we awarded over 435,000 college credits to high school students. And in case you're curious, the breakdown during the 1920 academic year was about 55% of our dual credits being awarded in the career and technical education space. So manufacturing, healthcare, information technology, with 45% falling within general education, our liberal arts and science programming. And together we achieve this through partnership with many of you, with K-12, over 425 high schools and career centers throughout the state, and over 2,800 dual credit faculty members that delivered high school, college, and high school programming. Through pathway programming and early college models, high school students were awarded over 4,500 college completions, which included short-term certificates, technical certificates, and associate degrees. And these completions are stackable and transferable. And in the career and technical education areas, they're creating workforce-ready graduates. Next slide, please. So as many of you know, we provide college and high school programming through two primary mechanisms. Dual credit programming, which represents the programming that we offer in high schools and career centers, taught by high school teachers who are credentialed to teach at a post-secondary level, and students earn both high school and college credit simultaneously. And at Ivy Tech, students are not charged tuition under a dual credit model. Dual enrollment programming represents what we offer on our campuses traditionally and taught by an Ivy Tech faculty member. Dual enrollment often comes alongside dual credit programming to help students earn credits and credentials that otherwise would not be available through dual credit alone. So students, again, earn both high school and college credit simultaneously, and there are associated tuition fees with dual enrollment programming. And so this graph represents Ivy Tech's year-over-year growth in both dual credit and dual enrollment programming. Next slide, please. So even though we've increased the number of dual credits awarded, that is not our ultimate goal. Our ultimate goal is to offer meaningful credits to high school students. So really intentional credits, credits that result in stackable credentials. And our efforts are really well captured within this graph, which shows the growth in post-secondary credentials awarded to high school students annually. So you can see the year-over-year growth in the post-secondary credentials that high school students are earning. So this does represent, for example, in the dark green to the far right during the 2019-2020 academic year, that dark green represents those Indiana College Core completions that Dr. Sauer is referring to, formerly referred to as STGEC, Statewide Transfer Gen Ed Core. The very top in gray represents associate degree completions, and then below that with the dark blue and the lime green, those represent completions within the career and technical education areas. Next slide, please. And I'm going to turn it over to Terry Lambert at the Commission to talk a little bit about the Higher Learning Commission credentialing guidance and some of the credentialing changes that are forthcoming as a result.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. I appreciate that and appreciate the opportunity to maybe set some things straight. In the past, there's been confusion about who's really requiring these credentialing standards. We want everyone to know it's not the Indiana Commission for Higher Education, but the Higher Learning Commission, which may mean who are they? What is it? And this is one of the 6 regional post-secondary institutional accreditors in the United States. HLC covers the North Central region, which Indiana is one of the 19 states in that region. And the goal of accreditation is to ensure that education provided by the institutions of higher education meets acceptable levels of quality. That being said, when HLC published their credentialing criteria for faculty teaching general education in 2016, it impacted faculty both on the campus and our dual credit teachers. Originally, the effective date was to be September 2017. But the Indiana Commission for Higher Education, led by Dr. Sauer and Commissioner Lubbers, along with other partners within the state, advocated with HLC to extend that timeline to give our dual credit instructors additional time to meet those credentialing standards. Well, an application was then put forward to HLC from Indiana, covering 22 institutions, 14 public and 8 independent colleges. That extension was granted to be September 1st, 2022. During the COVID pandemic, Commissioner Lovers went back to HLC and asked for an additional year extension. That was approved. So now that target date, as you can see at the bottom of the slide, is September 1st, 2023. Next slide, please. So we need to see, well, how is this really impacting our dual credit teachers? And this is an impact on the general education, those teaching general education in the liberal arts and science disciplines. These standards do not impact those credentialed within the career and technical programs. HLC refers to those as occupational courses. So we look at this, teaching general education, the credentialing options then become either the dual credit teacher has a master's degree in that discipline area that they're teaching, or a master's degree outside the discipline with 18 graduate, and we underscore these have to be graduate credit hours in the discipline. So let's go to the next slide to see a little bit more about the general education courses. This ties back to our priority liberal arts course list that the commission puts out. And in Indiana, these courses would be the courses we're talking about. It's a subset of the core transfer library. These courses are transferable and applicable to general education programs. They provide students the opportunity to earn the Indiana College Core, very, very important. And as I think we've heard mentioned before, focused and intentional dual credit opportunities, very, very important that we're trying to focus these opportunities for students to earn the credits that will help them the most move forward in their educational experience. So in the next slide, it might bring it home to look at that priority course list, and then these are put into the competency areas of the Indiana College Core. The core has a group of 6 competency areas, as you can see in the larger type, and how those courses would fit in under those areas and meet those competencies. To earn the core, students need to take at least 3 credit hours in each of the competency areas, and then it's up to the post-secondary institution certifying or conferring the core to determine the distribution of the additional 12 credit hours, coming up to that 30 credit hours. Next slide, please. We want to briefly touch on career and technical because in Indiana, we consider career and technical courses, or occupational, as HLC refers to them, as those courses that you're going to find on the career and technical crosswalk that we work so closely with the Governor's Workforce Cabinet Office of CTE. And these are clearly defined on the crosswalks, and the crosswalks can be found not only on transferin.net, but on the Indiana Department of Education website and on the Office of CTE website. And just to underscore, the teacher credentialing standards for these courses are determined by each individual post-secondary provider. So just to kind of round out all of the offerings, and again, the impact of HLC's teacher credentialing. So now I'd like to hand it back to Dr. Risholte to discuss more about the impact of dual credit teacher credentialing.
Great, thank you, Terry. I want to spend just a couple of minutes talking about the impact of the teacher credentialing changes on Ivy Tech dual credit faculty members across the state, so that we can have a glimpse of how these changes are really going to impact our teachers, and then we'll be able to move into talking about some potential solutions and opportunities available. Next slide, please. So this graph, specifically the dark green bar, shows Ivy Tech's total dual credit faculty within the liberal arts and science disciplines. It shows that it's remained relatively stable year over year, and the light green bar represents the number of fully credentialed instructors within these disciplines. So if you'll see from left to right, the 2017 through 2020 data is current data, with the 2021 through 2023 data representing our projection. So since we've been experiencing an average 6.5% year-over-year growth in fully credentialed instructors, if we were to project that out over the next 3 years, then we're going to see still quite a discrepancy or gap between the number of instructors that we're currently operating under and those that will be considered to be fully credentialed. Next slide, please. This graph shows the improvement in the percentage of fully credentialed instructors, with the current year being 42.3% of our total dual credit faculty within the liberal arts and sciences. This chart also shows the percentage of instructors who are alternatively or provisionally credentialed and possess at least a master's degree. So that's represented by the orange line. Those are individuals with a master's degree or higher. And those with a bachelor's degree as their highest degree is represented by the blue line. And this chart also includes some predictive modeling that shows by the 2023 deadline, only 56.1% of our dual credit faculty will be credentialed if we don't take additional action. Therefore, we would be displacing over 600 dual credit instructors, which would result in an estimated loss of about 1,200 dual credit classes each year, and an impact estimated at about 12,000 dual credit enrollments. So action is definitely needed to be able to mitigate this projected loss. And so now we're going to turn it over to talk about some potential solutions. And I'm going to turn it over to our partners at SEL.
Great. Thank you. We are really excited to have this opportunity to talk a bit about the solution that we can bring to bear in helping teachers to become fully credentialed. It is, as you can imagine, an important opportunity, not just through the lens of the individual students, but also the school as a whole, as schools need to remain positioned to have high rates of students graduating from that school with a college and career credential. On to the next slide. So SEL has a wide collection of projects that we're engaged in right now. If you're not familiar with SEL, most of our work doesn't happen within the University of Indianapolis, but rather it happens outside the university as we collaborate with K-12 institutions and other higher ed partners. To give you a quick sampling, we have work going on in the teacher prep space around innovation and school choice. We are engaged in a comprehensive counseling project funded by the Lilly Endowment up in the Elkhart region. We have our early college work, which is probably what we're best known for and what most of you have probably had some experience with our staff on, and a new project being funded through the U.S. Department of Education to accelerate rural high schools and being able to become early college high schools. We also have our eWin project, which connects the workforce to educational opportunities, and then STEM Teach and Teach Dual Credit, which is the focal point of this conversation. So I'm going to turn it over to Trish, who is leading up this effort, so she can talk a bit about how this project will help to clear the way so that we have a pool of teachers who remain credentialed in Indiana.
Hi, everyone. It's so fun to be able to share the really good news at the end of this presentation. So thanks, Carrie, for teeing up Teach Dual Credit Indiana and STEM Teach Indiana. Certainly SEL partners with the Commission and administers both of these programs, but I think it's important to note that they serve teachers in different content areas and really have some different funding parameters. So we want to make it clear to which program teachers may apply. And we created this flow chart, and if you work through it with me, I think it'll direct you to the right program. So both of these programs pay the cost of tuition and textbooks or materials directly to the participating universities. So these programs are at no financial cost to teachers or schools. So that is really great news. And we're really appreciative that Indiana has prioritized this for teachers. So for instance, if you're starting on the left, if you were to choose the content area that you teach as communications or speech, economics, English, government, or political science, history, or world language, then the program that you would apply to is Teach Dual Credit Indiana. If, however, you're teaching biology, chemistry, math, physics, psychology, or a technology course that requires dual credit credentialing, then you would apply to STEM Teach. For both programs, though, you want to make sure you gather all the information and some documentation that you need to apply in the online application. And I'll walk through some of those details in a moment. But after you submit the application, here's what you should expect. You should receive just a basic auto reply email indicating that we received that application. At that point, our team starts to review the information in your application, and really we work as quickly as we can to verify it. I would say it usually takes from 2 to 4 business days. It really depends on the number of applications we have in the queue. But once we've verified the information in your application, then you will receive an email from us indicating if you've been accepted to the program, or maybe if we need some additional information from you. Once you receive that acceptance email, you would then be able to register for courses in your content area during a course registration window. But keep in mind, we get this question a lot. You only apply once, but then you register for each course prior to each semester. Next, please. So for Teach Dual Credit Indiana, and we like to think of this as a motivational phrase, so it's Teach Dual Credit Indiana. So for Teach Dual Credit Indiana, teachers would be teaching in a accredited Indiana K-12 private, public, or charter school. And teachers who currently have a master's degree and are currently teaching dual credit do receive priority registration. And once that priority registration opportunity passes, then registration opens for the other accepted teachers. Next. This slide is really provided as an example of some of the courses that were offered through Teach Dual Credit Indiana in our current winter-spring semester in those various non-STEM content areas. So as you can see, we offered one course in communications from Indiana State University. We had a total of 4 classes in English, and they were offered from Indiana Wesleyan University, University of Indianapolis, and Purdue University Northwest. For history, we also offered 3 courses that were from Indiana State University, Purdue University Northwest, and University of Southern Indiana. And for political science, we had 1 course from Indiana University. And for world languages, we had 1 course in Spanish from IU. So we will continue to see courses similar to these moving forward, and we'll have more courses from additional participating universities as well. You may note that econ is not listed here. However, we will have econ courses beginning in this upcoming summer semester. All of these courses are offered in an online format. Some of them are synchronous and some of them are asynchronous, and some of them are a combination of both. But rest assured, if they are synchronous, that they are offered outside of regular K-12 school hours so teachers can access them. Next, please. Moving on to STEM Teach. This is the 8th year that STEM Teach has been funded. And while in the past few funding cycles, the primary goal is to serve dual credit teachers, we also offer undergrad courses, workshops, conference scholarships, and some other opportunities related to STEM content areas for all Indiana K-12 teachers. Important note for this program is that teachers need to be teaching in an Indiana accredited K-12 public or charter school to participate. Next. So this slide is an example of what we would post on the STEM Teach website prior to a registration window. We call this a sneak peek since registration is not open yet. And for summer 2021, we'll have, as you can see, 1 course in biology, 3 courses in math, 1 course in chemistry, 1 course in physics, 1 in psychology, and 1 in technology. And some of those participating universities are Indiana Wesleyan, Indiana State, IU, University of St. Francis, and Valparaiso University. And the great thing with STEM Teach is since we're a few years along in that program, we have an updated program catalog that we keep on the website with all of our past and future courses if you need to review those. Next. So as promised, here's a little bit more information about what teachers do need to apply to either program. Please make sure that you have your Indiana teaching license number, your school's mailing address, that you've gotten a letter of acknowledgement from a school administrator, and the number of graduate credits that you or hours that you need in your content area. If you don't know that for certain, you can certainly estimate, and we can confirm it with you later. If you were to visit our how to apply pages on either website, you'll find a link to look up your Indiana teaching license number and then a clear set of instructions for what should be included in the administrator acknowledgement letter. So for administrators joining the webinar today, you have a job. Please just make sure you review what needs to be included in that letter. So for example, you'll want to make sure you identify the teacher by name and their content area. And if this teacher is currently teaching dual credit courses in your high school, or if they're slated to in the future, please make sure that the letter is on school letterhead and that it's signed by you. And then you'll send it electronically to the teacher who is applying, and then they upload that in their online application. Next. So this slide is a quick demo, and I think, Kathy, if you can click in the bottom left to start it's a video. It does not have audio. I'll work through it. So as you can hopefully see, you would click on Apply Now, create a new account, type in your information, your email address and a password, and then click Register. And then you would really just begin filling out your information, your school's information. You would answer some demographic information, your educational background. And this at the bottom is where you would browse on your computer for your administrator acknowledgement letter. And then you would click Upload. Sometimes people miss that step. But if you have all the information ready, this application should probably take you 5 minutes to complete at the most. We do recommend that you complete it in one sitting, just so all the information saves, and that you do it from a computer or a laptop. We don't recommend a smartphone. I think you probably could, but I think it's much easier to type in all the information and access that administrator letter if you do it on a laptop or a computer. Next. Of course, we've heard from many teachers that taking graduate courses is not easy. It can be time consuming, and the content can be, obviously really challenging. However, we've heard from a lot of teachers how wonderful these programs are. We have so many teachers who consider themselves to be lifelong learners as well. Heather Jackson is delightful to work with. She's from Danville High School, and she worked through STEM Teach to take graduate courses in chemistry and biology over the last few years. And she's now fully credentialed to teach dual credit courses in both of those content areas. And she notes that the importance of it is at zero cost and how helpful the STEM Teach staff was. Next. Ashley Bean from West Central Senior High School completed 18 graduate credits in mathematics last year, and she's now credentialed. She teaches pre-calc and calculus, and she notes that that online portal is easy to apply and register for classes. I do see some familiar names in the attendee list, and I think that they would echo some of these sentiments as well. Next. So what should teachers do right now? Reserve your spot. And how do you do that? You reserve it by applying to the program that fits your content area need. We offer registration for courses each semester based on the amount of funding that we have, of course. And then we also determine the number of courses and seats that are needed in each class based on the teachers who have applied to the program, and then how many teachers our participating colleges can serve. But for example, if we have a low number of teachers who have applied to take communications or speech, but a high number of teachers who have applied to take history, then we will offer more courses and seats in history than in communication. So please just help us now by, completing that online application really as soon as possible. There are some important dates here, just a little bit of difference between each program. For STEM Teach, we ask, applications will close on March 19th. So we ask, please make sure your application is in sooner rather than later. And for Teach Dual Credit Indiana, since this program is new, we need you to apply by March 1st. This will allow us to balance the number of courses and seats offered for registration. For both programs, summer registration takes place March 15th to April 2nd. Next. So if you have questions, you need more information, don't hesitate to reach out to me directly. My information is on this slide. Crystal Cater is our project coordinator for STEM Teach, and Andrea Fisher is our project coordinator for Teach Dual Credit Indiana. They're both delightful to work with. They work with teachers who have any questions, regarding how to apply, the status of their application. They'll send you the confirmation emails regarding your application. So please don't hesitate to reach out to either one of them if you have questions. And then I would just add that both of the websites are listed on this slide as well. They're really robust in terms of content and information available. Easy to remember, I hope, stemteachindiana.org and teachdualcredit.org. And there are some FAQs there as well, and they're loaded with lots of information based on the questions that we've received from teachers really in both programs. So I think you'll find, some helpful information there as well. So thank you for joining us. And I think we are ready to move on to some more question and answers.
I'm just going to jump in with some of the questions that have been raised in excellent questions in the Q&A. We've been trying to keep up with them, but I think specifically to some of the questions that we've gotten around the courses that are offered through STEM Teach and Teach Dual Credit Indiana. There was just a comment about a process that would help teachers is to make these classes available anytime rather than during specific date semesters. So that's just kind of a suggestion that was mentioned. I think a question I'm going to go ahead and field is there any chance of grandfathering teachers who've been teaching the dual credit courses for a number of years? We wish there had been. That was one of the things that not only we went to HLC about, but a number of other states and institutions and systems did, and that was just not even an option. So unfortunately, we have to say no to that. Another question that was raised, let me see if I can find it now. I think they're getting answered so quickly on the back end that one of these did ask a question, and I'm going to pitch this to Ken. Someone asked, can you speak a bit more about the college-to-college transcript that you hope to have ready next year? What does it look like for students? Can they send their high school transcripts showing dual credit to other universities and have those credits transcribed? They wouldn't have to have the providing college send the transcript to the college the student is attending. So lots of questions around that. So I'm going to pitch that one to Ken to see if he'd like to field it. If not, I can always take that one too.
Yes, well, let me jump in. The high school student would still need to request the college transcripts to be sent to the college that they're enrolling in. The high school transcript would note that the student took a course for dual credit, but the admissions office at the institution that they plan to attend as a college student would want to see, it needs the official transcript from the other school where the student took the dual credit from. Now, we are just beginning this work, but it has started in earnest. In fact, this particular month, we expect Ivy Tech to send the first college transcripts as XML data to a partner institution. And once that pilot has been accomplished, we can then expand that to the other institutions as well. I'd like to see that in place, at least for some institutions by the next academic year, and for all institutions, certainly by the year after that. But we will try to make this as convenient as possible for the student to request college transcripts. So right now, it's pretty easy for them to identify all the colleges that they want to send their high school transcript to. We'd like to do something very similar to that for the college transcripts for all of the courses for which they earn dual credit.
Very good. Thank you, Ken. We have another question that I think I would like to pitch to Carrie, because someone asked, the high school needs to be a public, not private school. So Carrie, would you like to field that one?
Sure. I wasn't sure the timing of when that came in. If that was in reference to the challenge that exists between STEM teach and teach dual credit, I wanted to have Trish sort of highlight that, again, the difference between if you're a private school teacher, which program can you take part in, and if you're a public school teacher, which programs can you take part in? So Trish, can you just highlight that again?
Sure, no problem. Again, the question came earlier on in the conversation, so I wasn't sure if it applied to the funded programs or not. But Teach Dual Credit Indiana works with all accredited schools in Indiana, so private, public, charter, etc. And then STEM Teach works with public and charter schools.
Right. Thank you. There was another question about, and I lost it. Someone was asking about dual credit agriculture fitting into these programs. And again, that would fall in our career and technical crosswalk, and so be covered under the occupational. But we do want to say you will need to work with your provider to ensure that your teachers are credentialed appropriately for that course that's being taught. So that's very, very important.
Carrie, can I piggyback on that as well?
Please do, Rebecca.
So within the career and technical education areas, if you are credentialed today, you will be credentialed in 2023. It's the liberal arts and science priority areas, those general education areas where the credentialing is changing. That's a question we receive quite frequently, so I just wanted to dispel any myths around the CTE areas.
And then that's great, because someone had asked about business. And so again, in the health science courses. So Rebecca, would you like to go ahead and address those too? I think it's just an overarching answer, isn't it?
They fall under career and technical education. So folks that are credentialed today, instructors credentialed today, will be credentialed 2023. Thank you.
Very good. And, oh, okay. The question regarding the public and private, the question was for early on regarding it's being identified as a delivery site for the college course. So I think that went back to Dr. Sauer, that could a private high school be noted as a delivery site?
The short answer is yes, they could be. Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm just trying to, like I said, a whole lot of these coming in. People are asking about, a lot of people are asking about specifics such as fine arts, going back to, you know, engineering, things along that line. And again, working with your post-secondary partner on that. A very interesting question came in about how do we get our school registered as a school that offers the Indiana College course. So again, I think Dr. Sauer, you went into a lot more detail about that. Hopefully it was answered, but I think that once the criteria is determined, then that will help tremendously, that we can communicate out to the broad audience of schools as we are doing this communication around the Indiana College Core, to be able to help you see and to be able to help your providers see and get that primary provider to ensure that you're able to sustain the offering and provide the elements of the core. Anything else you wanted to add to that?
No, you did a good job, Terry.
Okay, great. And I don't know if I may be, oh, someone asked who's my dual credit provider. That's a great question. Who do you partner with? What college or university or college or universities do you partner with at your school? So are you partnering with Ivy Tech on courses? Are you partnering with IU? That is, when we use the term dual credit provider, that's what we mean, is we mean that post-secondary provider.
And Terry, to add to that, a high school may have more than one provider. So we have high schools that partner with multiple post-secondary institutions. So that's quite common, actually.
It really is. And I think then it speaks back to the criteria that we're working on for the core to make sure that there's a strong communication among those partners working together to be able to see what offerings are going to be able to be put together so that students will have the opportunity to earn the Indiana College Core.
Right, but there would only be one primary post-secondary partner because that is the partner that ultimately would confer the certificate on the individual.
Exactly. We've got another question around the funding for STEM Teach. I'm going to pitch this one to Carrie. Dank, may I ask why private schools are not included in the funding for STEM Teach? And then the teacher goes into a little bit of detail about the type of teaching, but since I'm a private school teacher, I cannot take part in that funding. So Carrie, would you like to take that one?
Sure. So unfortunately, the way the funding comes through the legislature, it is in the budget bill, so written in code. It specifically states that these funds are for public schools. And so as the funds come down to sell, we're restricted in that we cannot enroll a private school teacher in the STEM Teach program because of that limitation. It is something that we've raised as a concern because we see more and more children enrolling in private institutions and needing those types of opportunities. But as it stands today, that's a legislative issue that is out of our control.
Thank you. And someone else asked, we partnered, this kind of goes back to Rebecca's point, we partner with 3 different universities. Will this be a problem with the new system going into place? So I think, you know, again, anyone feel like you want to jump in there, but I think it's not a problem. Again, it comes back to what has been mentioned several times, that idea of a primary provider. So someone has to be the one to confer the core. They have to take responsibility for that. There have to be at least half of the credits, or that 15 credit hours have to come from that post-secondary provider before they can confer the core. So it's just working together between those institutions to make sure that there is that primary. Rebecca, would you like to join in?
Well, I just wanted to add a comment because there was a question regarding pedagogy courses, graduate level pedagogy courses. And I just, they were asking if the graduate level pedagogy courses would count toward the 18 graduate credit hours required for credentialing. Within academic policy, Ivy Tech does allow up to 6 credits of discipline-specific pedagogy for inclusion within the 18 graduate credit hours needed to be credentialed. I will note that these decisions are at the discretion of academic administration at each Ivy Tech campus, but I did want to share that there is the possibility that your graduate level pedagogy courses could count toward your 18 graduate credit hours.
Thank you. I think we have another situation that many schools can probably relate to. Teaching dual credit math courses prior to 2023, a 26-year veteran licensed math and masters in progress, but no one currently teaching dual credit math at my school. And I think that we are seeing some of these gaps as teachers are trying to get credentialed and as we are seeing teachers retire. This is one of the things that we understand is going to be one of the biggest challenges, and why programs like STEM Teach and Teach Dual Credit Indiana so very, very important to try to help provide those opportunities for teachers to obtain the credentials needed.
So we are at time. and we want to be respectful of everyone's time. So we are going to wrap up our session for today, but we appreciate everyone's attendance and engagement in the session. We had over 400 registrants for today's session. So we had a fantastic turnout, and it was obviously a topic that was needed to be discussed. So we're glad that we were able to come together to provide today's training. I think today is probably the beginning of much more dialogue around this topic, as opposed to sort of end of the conversation. I think it's really just going to open up more communication lines between you, between Ivy Tech, between CEL and other partners across the state. So we're looking forward to that further continued dialogue around this topic. There are many questions that came up in the chat that unfortunately we were not able to answer today. So I'm looking at that we received over between 80 and 90 questions in the chat. So obviously we were not able to get to all of those today. We can also work to put together an FAQ document so that we can take some of the common questions that were asked and answer those through an FAQ document. As I've noted, was shared earlier, and I've noted in the chat as well, we will be working to send out the recording of today's session, as well as the PowerPoint in a follow-up email to all registrants. So whether the individual is able to attend today or not, please let folks know if they registered for today's session, they will receive a copy of the recording as well as the PowerPoint. So thanks again. I want to thank all my partners at the Indiana Commission for Higher Education and CEL at UND for all of their engagement in today's session and for helping to be guest presenters today. And all of you who attended today, thank you for being here. And we look forward to continued dialogue on this topic. Have a great afternoon, everyone.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.